What if I told you that an 80-year-old atheist farmer heard voices from a dried-up well, and those whispers changed his life forever? He had buried his wife. He had buried his faith. But one stormy night, something called him. Not a ghost, not madness, but a message that would shake his very soul. He started seeing dreams he couldn't explain, symbols, verses, words in a language he never learned. And then came the miracle. The moment when a man on the verge of death saw the light, quite literally. This isn't just a ghost story. This is the story of divine love chasing a heart that had turned cold and setting it on fire with faith. Stay with us till the end, because what happens in the final seconds of his life will leave you in tears. Watch now and witness how Allah guides whom He wills. The sky hung low over the old village of Barren, where mist clung to the rolling fields like a silent ghost. Time itself seemed to slow down here. Generations had tilled the land, plowed the same furrows, and whispered the same prayers to an unseen force. Among them lived an old man named Thomas Hale, a farmer by trade, a skeptic by nature. His back was bent like the ancient oaks surrounding his field, his hands weathered, and his eyes clouded, not just by age, but by years of disbelief. He was known among the villagers as a man of few words, whose heart was buried in his late wife, Martha. Since her death, Thomas had become even more reclusive. He refused church visits, refused the village festivals, and lived only for his land. Every morning, like clockwork, he would wake before the sun, whisper to the soil as if it were alive, and tend to his crops with a devotion that seemed almost sacred. But something began to change that winter. It started with the well. One bitter morning, as Thomas walked toward the old stone well that had served his family for generations, he noticed a strange humming sound. Low, rhythmic, almost melodic. The closer he came, the louder it grew, vibrating through his bones. He leaned over the edge, expecting to find an animal trapped inside, but saw nothing. The water was still and black, reflecting his worn face. "Hello," he called out, half mocking himself. The well answered, but it wasn't an echo. It was a whisper in a language he did not know, soft, fluid, almost musical. He stepped back, heart pounding. For a man who had never believed in spirits or gods, this was deeply unsettling. That night, sleep evaded him. His dreams were filled with deserts stretching endlessly under burning suns, men in white robes walking calmly, and a voice reciting words that stirred something deep within him. Days passed, and the whispering from the well grew more frequent. One evening, just as twilight dyed the sky in hues of crimson and ash, Thomas found something carved into the stone of the well, a symbol he had never seen before, a circle within a crescent, almost glowing under the fading light. It hadn't been there before. The villagers noticed the change in Thomas. He walked slower, talked less, and his eyes, once dull with grief, now burned with something else. Curiosity? Fear? They couldn't tell, but they whispered about him now, the way children whisper about haunted houses. One stormy night, as thunder cracked like whips across the sky, Thomas awoke to the sound of footsteps in his field. Thinking it was a thief or perhaps one of the neighbor boys playing a prank, he grabbed his lantern and stepped outside. The rain poured, washing the earth clean, but the footsteps, light and deliberate, continued. He followed them, the lantern shaking in his hand, until he reached the scarecrow he had built in memory of Martha. It had stood untouched for years, arms wide open, hat tilted to the side, just the way she used to wear it in the garden. But tonight it was gone. In its place stood a man, clad in white, soaked from the rain, but standing still, as if untouched by the storm. Thomas stumbled back, nearly dropping the lantern. "Who are you?" he shouted. But the man raised a hand, not to harm, but to calm. And then he spoke, "La ilaha illallah." The words hit Thomas like lightning. They meant nothing to him and everything all at once. The storm seemed to pause, if only for a moment. The man vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving only a Qur'an wrapped in oilskin at the base of the scarecrow post. Thomas picked it up with trembling hands. He spent the next few days consumed by the book, He could not read Arabic, but each page held something he couldn't explain, a warmth, a familiarity, a truth that evaded definition. With the help of an old translation he found in the village library, he began to understand. Verses spoke to him like whispers from the well, about the creation of earth and man from clay, about prophets and miracles, about one God, merciful just and near. One verse stopped him cold, and we send down from the Quran that which is healing and mercy for the believers. Surah Al-Isra, 17 hours, 82 minutes. Healing. He clutched his chest, remembering the ache he had lived with since Martha died, the emptiness, the numbness, and now, this strange peace blooming inside him like spring after an endless winter. One evening, he returned to the well. He leaned over and whispered, "If you are real, show me." The wind howled, the ground trembled, and then silence. The next morning, the field that had been barren all winter had bloomed. Sunflowers, impossibly tall, gold heads tilted toward the sun. No one could explain it. Scientists came, reporters, botanists. But Thomas knew. He fell into sujood, prostration, on the cold earth. His hands dirty, his knees aching, but his soul lighter than ever before. He took his shida with an old Muslim traveler who had come upon hearing of the miracle field. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Tears streamed down his face. He was 79, but reborn. The villagers were stunned. Some whispered of sorcery. Others kept their distance. But one by one, curiosity brought them to his land, to see the sunflowers, to hear his story. And Thomas welcomed them all, not with arguments, but with tea, stories from the Quran, and a smile that seemed younger than his years. But the story didn't end there. For every light cast a shadow, and something from the well was still watching. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can watch the part 2 of this story, and share to our channel Deen in Minute for more real and miraculous stories that will strengthen your mind.